opinion in terms of why it's important that when we're communicating with people outside of the Ottawa bubble, that we be as factual as possible on the legislation.
Member Kitchener Centre.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, and certainly to the member for Winnipeg North. Certainly agreed. It's important to be clear. We must act expeditiously in advance of the March 17th deadline. I'm glad to see the governing party is moving this forward in order for us to do so. And as we shared this morning, it's one of the reasons why Greens supported moving ahead with time allocation in this case. And this demonstrates that there are parliamentary tools available to move with urgency on issues that merit that. And as I shared in my speech, when it comes to housing, we need more than the right words. We need to see the investments and the parliamentary tools to move more quickly, same as is the case for ending legislated poverty for people with disabilities.
And comments? The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park for Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One of the striking things for me about this debate is that no advocate of legalized or expanded euthanasia says that everybody should be able to access this thing because they want it. Rather, what advocates say is that people in certain situations should be able to access it. So, for instance, they say that if an able-bodied person comes to a doctor and says, I want you to help me end my life, they're offered some kind of suicide prevention. But if a person with a disability says that in the context of my situation, I want to end my life, they might be offered suicide facilitation. So this is not about a general policy of choice or autonomy. This is rather about saying that certain people who present with an apparent desire for death are treated one way and others are treated a different way. That raises a big problem in terms of how we value the lives of people with disabilities. I'm curious for my colleague's response.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess my concern is in this debate is when we speak about the reality of legislated poverty for people with disabilities, I'm concerned that it's only coming up today in this debate. And it's certainly, I think it's important for all parliamentarians to consider how they spend their time on a regular basis, ensuring they continue to advocate to end legislated poverty, to improve the quality of life for people with disabilities with the tools they've got here available to them. And I'd encourage my colleague from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan to consider using the tools he has available to him, for example, to push this government to fund the Canada Disability Benefit, a substantive measure that could make a real difference to improve the lives of people with disabilities that we haven't seen this government move ahead with, disappointingly so.
On a le temps pour une brève question. L'honorable député de Montcalm.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have trouble understanding the colleague's arguments. He knows that there are structural vulnerabilities such as poverty, which do impact overall health. Is he telling us that we need to solve this before we allow those suffering from mental illness to be relieved from their irremediable suffering? Because that's the impression that I'm getting from his remarks. Recommendations 5 and 6 made by experts, though, say that if there is even a shadow of doubt about structural vulnerabilities, then MAiD is not a good option at all.
First of all, apologies. I will reply in English to make sure I get my wording correctly. In future, I hope to do so in French. But the short answer is yes. I believe very strongly that this Parliament should be working far more diligently towards closing our social safety net before and in comparison to the urgency it seems to have had with expanding medical assistance in dying, would rather see our Parliament close our social safety net first.
Resuming debate. The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be sharing my time with my colleague from the left.